Let's now take a look at the special administrator functions of the program. The program comes with one administrator account defined with username admin and password admin. And we'll log it on. And I want to point out that you can define as many administrators as you would like, or as few, but be sure that you always have one active administrator account and that you know the password, because if you don't, you won't be able to do any of this maintenance work that we're about to look at. But once you're logged in as an administrator, this button will be active, and you can click it to get to the next screen, which is called the password maintenance screen. And on this screen, you will do a few things, but the primary function is to set up and maintain user records. So you can see the names of the people we've been working with and their security codes, one meaning that the person has administrative clearance, and two meaning that they are strictly a user, and those are the only two levels of security in the program. If you, for example, wanted to make John Doe an administrator, you would simply put a 1 in here and he becomes an administrator. If you want to knock him back down to user, you change it to 2 and he's user. Now note also there's an active field over here, active question mark. With this you can deactivate users. If you uncheck it, that user will no longer be allowed to log into the program. And to give you an example of adding a user, and I'll say that whether you use first name, last name, first name, capitals, lowercase, is strictly your decision. But I'm going to set up an account for John Smith. His tax ID number his social security number, and let's make him a resident of the state of, let's go somewhere I've never been, Alaska. John's lucky and unlucky. He's lucky in the sense that Alaska has no sales tax. Unlucky in the sense that he's going to need a lot of antifreeze to keep his blood from freezing in the middle of the winter. And John is going to have to declare himself. Oh, he's got to. We need to declare his password, which will be frozen. And we're going to make him an administrator because he's the only one up there. And it's as simple as that. Now, if John or one of your users were to move, or you were to move, before making any purchases in your new state of residence, you will want to change it. In this case, John said, enough of the snow and ice, I'm moving to Arizona. And now he's in Arizona. So there's your main function. Now, in addition to that, I'm going to show you a little box I've added over here on the right. And with this box, as the label says, you can select below to edit a list. And the lists being referenced here are the drop-down lists. And here you see their names corresponding to the drop-down fields here. Now, the way you would use this is, let's say in category locations, someone made an error, namely me, and typed in GITF for gift. Well, we don't want gift and GTIF, so we can simply highlight that record by selecting it, the record selector, and hit the delete button, and it's gone. Now, let us I'm going to let these resort by going in and out. And let's say that this would be also a typical use of the edit function here. You're not going to want to have categories gift and gifts. So if you find things like this, you'll want to clean up. Let's say we're going to delete gifts. You as the administrator may also want to predefine lists of values for these fields, although as we've seen, users can add new values to these drop-down fields on the fly as they're entering purchases. And the same, of course, applies to all the other drop-down lists. You do want to be careful with your categories. The categories that correspond to the special products, like drugs, non-prescription drugs, prescription, we'll be looking at these categories in a minute. You don't want to mess around with, because selecting these specific categories when you're entering purchases triggers the proper sales tax percentages being applied to those purchases. So be a little careful with your categories, but you can add as many more as you would like, and you can, of course, clean it up in here as well. So that's what that's for. Now, you'll see another button up here in the middle called Add Edit State. When you click that, you get a new user interface screen. And I have predefined all 50 states and preloaded their current general sales tax rates and luxury sales tax rates, although I only know of one luxury rate at this point in time, which is Connecticut. On this screen, you will need to maintain these tax rates and keep them accurate, so that when your state does change their sales tax rates, or if they decide to add a luxury tax, for example, you will need to go in and edit these fields and keep them accurate. In addition to the general and luxury tax rates, we've mentioned already a couple of times the special categories of products, and we took a brief look at this state tax rate worksheet report, which shows you the entire array of the special categories that I have defined. As we've discussed, paying taxes on some of these items on out-of-state purchases is basically on the honor system. However, if you do decide to pay your sales tax obligation on out-of-state purchases, and you buy any of these products and you don't have correct rates loaded for these products, then the program is going to show you incorrect calculations for your tax due. So you'll want to pay attention to these. And as we've seen, there are 4 basic groups. We have the clothing and footwear. We have digital products, including software. That would also be things like ebooks and movie rentals and movie and music purchases online. States vary wildly in the way they treat these things. Down here we have drugs, prescription and non-prescription, as well as medical devices, prescription and non-prescription, and finally the sin tax items. Liquor, wine, and beer need to be separate because many of the states treat them separately. In addition to that, cigarettes is, for the most part, treated differently from other tobacco products, and there is one state that treats little cigars as cigarettes, so I split that out here in case that's your state. And finally, there's a column for marijuana, which is now legal in a few states and taxed in most of the states where it's legal. So this report is actually a worksheet report where you might do some online research and confirm that you're carrying the correct values, or if you're not, you might note the correct values in here and then go back into your program, and this is how you would correct them. In this drop down, which will default to your state of residence, you then have another drop down beside it, which shows you the 4 general categories, general special product categories. By populating with one of them, you get another subscreen showing you the state you're working in, the general and luxury rates, and what you're carrying for the special rates. Now note there are special clothing and footwear because in states where clothing and footwear may or may not be taxed, there often are special categories which will be taxed even if generally they're not taxed. Typically that is protective clothing, athletic clothing, and athletic footwear. So you'll want to pay attention to that. Also, fur clothing is generally taxable. Now here in the state of Massachusetts, it's actually true that taxing of clothing is the exception, so these two values should be 0. So I've updated them, and in a like manner, you can update the values for your digital and software products, your medical, which is drugs and devices, and your sin tax items. And so that's how you will maintain your database. Whoops, I must close this, the top item, and then I can close this, and then I can close this. So those are your basic administrator maintenance functions. You'll probably want to assign someone to do those if, in most cases, if you purchase the program, you will probably be the administrator. You'll want to set yourself up as an administrator and proceed from there. So that's all there is to it. And I'll now conclude this video. And once again, thank you for watching. In the next one, which may be the final one in the series, I'm going to show you how to eliminate the Microsoft security warning if you do have the full version of Access installed on your computer. So goodbye for now.